everyone, welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Friday, February 5th, 2021, and this is episode 170. My name is Carol. I can be found on Ravelry as Knits and Pearls, and I can be found living here in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, just a little ways east of Vancouver. It is about 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and once again I find myself recording much later in the day than I'd intended. So I'm going to try and get through this pretty quickly so that hopefully I can get it edited and uploaded by the time my husband Cameron gets home from work this evening, so that we can spend the entire evening together as we try to do on Friday nights. First things first, I want to remind you that the Making Time for Me Craft Along is taking place in the Ravelry group. It's very easy to participate. Just come by and chat about what it is you're making these days. Any craft, any type of project. It could be something for yourself or something for someone else. It can be a whip. It can be a brand new project. Doesn't matter. It's less about the actual projects we're working on and more about that we're trying to find some time to indulge in the craft that we love. I will be drawing for prizes in early March. The Cal runs until the end of February. And on my first episode in March, I will announce the winners of some yet to be determined prizes. Sorry guys, I still haven't got around to figuring out just exactly what those will be, but I promise you there will be prizes. So stay tuned. Maybe by next week. Not good. Okay, something else I wanted to talk about before I jump into my projects. I had a viewer ask me ask me to talk about how I measured gauge on my cabled swatch. So this is a swatch I did for the Monterey sweater project I'd recently started, and I was really pleased actually. They included a chart that you would knit up as a swatch, which I found very, very helpful. Because otherwise, how exactly do you even know where to start cabling and how those patterns are going to repeat, etc., etc. So normally, when I do a swatch, and I know it's not necessarily the right way, but it's my way, I normally, when I'm going to knit a swatch, I will look at the gauge that is suggested for the pattern, and I will cast on that number of stitches across, and then I add 2 or 3 border stitches on each side. And then I will knit a row or 2 of garter stitch, and then I will do my, usually it's stocking stitch, I will knit that for the suggested number of rows. Then I'll knit a couple of rows of garter stitch again, and then I'll bind off. And so when I measure this portion that is inside the boundaries, if it's smaller or larger than 4 inches, then I'm able to get a sense of how much more loosely or tightly I am knitting, and if I need to adjust my needle size, or maybe my gauge is okay across, but I know when I knit I'm going to have to accommodate for the length somehow. So that's how I normally do it. Now, this swatch was obviously bigger than 4 inches, and it also had a pattern area much larger than the suggested gauge. And so what I ended up doing is I used the chart to count the stitches from border to border, and from the top of the cabling to the bottom. And I think I actually went to here. I can't remember exactly. And I worked it out that it was 37 stitches across and 34 stitches down. So I took that number and I divided it by the number of inches from one side to the other. So that turned out to be 5 3/4 inches. So I took 37 stitches, divided it by 5.75, and came up with the result of 6.4 stitches. So I knew that that was my stitch gauge over the cabled section. And then I did the same for the rows. So I took 34 rows, divided it by 4.75, and came up with a row gauge of 7.2 stitches. So obviously, if it's, made sense to round up to, I was at about 6.5 stitches per inch and approximately 7 rows per inch. So then I could compare that to the suggested gauge of 26 stitches by 28 rows. So in other words, 6.5 by 7. So I knew I was very close to the suggested gauge. So that's how I did it. I hope that helps you with your question. All right, now for the knitting, well, for the projects, that is knitting. I have 2 finished projects this week and 3 works in progress, none of which you have seen before. And you're going to say, but wait a minute, Carol, last week you showed us some new works in progress. What happened to those? And what happened to those is they are just taking a little rest while I cast on some other things. That's just how things are right now, and I'm just rolling with it. Okay, first finished project are the Vapor Socks by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. I told you last week that I was hoping to finish these by last weekend so that I would be ready for the new Handmade Sock Society that was being released this week. This is my final pair that I had yet to finish up from the Handmade Sock Society 3. So I did succeed. In fact, I Kitchenered the toe late Sunday night. I stayed up just so I could say I finished them last weekend, which probably is not the best idea, but I was just really wanting to have them done. So they are knit from Black Cat Custom Yarn, which is a local to me dyer, and this is the everyday sock base in the Dratini colorway. So it is a top-down sock, 1x1 twisted rib, has this very simple lace pattern running down the front, meant to obviously, if it's called Vapor Socks, I would say meant to inspire the idea of, say, steam rising up, or heat waves, I guess, would also work. And then it's just a very simple lace pattern down these columns. Like most Helen Stewart socks, they are not super fussy. They're easy to make, usually quite an easy to memorize stitch pattern, but also more interesting than just plain stockinette. So traditional heel flap and gusset and a rounded toe. I usually substitute my own numbers for the toe and do the heel slightly different, but more or less looks the same as hers. So yes, happy to be finished those and add them to the rest of the socks in that collection. So I have another pair of finished socks. I hadn't really expected these to be done. I didn't even show them to you last week because I had hardly worked on them since the episode from the week before. But I ended up having sort of lots of downtime knitting last weekend that I wasn't, I guess I knew I'd have some. I didn't expect as much as I did have. And before I knew it, I was like reaching the point of doing the toes. So these are the Feathers and Tunes socks. I call them that because it's the Feathers and Tunes colorway from Fiber Nymph Dye Works. on her bounce base. And this was an exclusive colorway that you could opt to receive with your 2020 Holiday Pops mini collection. And so I opened the yarn on Christmas morning, and then because it was sort of the messaging behind the yarn colorway had to do with the new year, I decided to wait until New Year's Day to cast them on. So 64 stitch 2x2 rib top down. I did an afterthought heel. So in this case, I knit to this point, halfway through the speckled stripe, put in some waste yarn, knit a few more stripes, and then I took yarn from the other end of the ball to do the afterthought heel, and then I carried on, and then again a rounded toe. So I really love these socks. I'm so looking forward to wearing them. Maybe I'll put them on tomorrow. I just love the bright red in there and the speckles, and I just love everything about them. And so I'm happy to be finished those. So of course, as I always say, when you finish one pair of socks, you need to cast on another. Excuse me, I'm just gonna put these down. And so I did. This time I pulled this skein, or this ball of Zauberball Crazy out of my stash, just because it's just such a fun colorway. I had gotten this last September. This is color number 2389. There's the Zauberball Crazy. And in English, this translates to, I think it was Anniversary Party. Yeah, Anniversary Party. So did I say colorway number? Yeah, 2389. I think I did. Anyway, yeah. Well, I've said it now anyway. Yeah, look at all the fun colors in there. So here's the story with these socks. A while back, I had bought a 9-inch circular needle and decided that it was time to give socks a go on 9-inch circulars. Now I was recently watching an episode of the Crazy Sock Lady podcast, and it's her belief that you should give a new technique try on, I think she said 2 projects before you make up your mind whether or not you like them. I don't think these are going to last that long. I don't even think I can manage through 1 project, let alone 2. The ribbing took way longer than normal. I think I actually found it when I started knitting in the round. I was actually finding it easier to knit continental. Oh, that's, I don't know how much you can see. So basically holding the yarn in my left hand and scooping it off the needle with my right. It's hard to do it here on this one. Must be a strand or something that's catching. There you go. Anyway, it is slow going. This is not the way I normally knit. So not only do I find it slower, it's just kind of tedious. If I switch my yarn to the right hand, then I just find it awkward to hold the needles. I think because I'm used to having the length of the, I normally knit my socks on magic loop, and I'm used to having that longer needle shaft that I wrap I guess they must rest on my hands a certain way, or I wrap my hands around them a certain way. I'm not sure. I just find this very tedious, slow going, and you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I love knitting my socks on magic loop, and I am not loving this. And so because I knit because I love it, I feel a little bit like I am giving up too soon, but I am going to switch these to magic loop so that I can actually enjoy it, because the colors are so fun, and I don't want this to be a project that I avoid doing because I don't like the actual knitting of it. And that's kind of what's been happening this week. So I wanted to at least show you that I gave it a try. Maybe what I'll do, since they are very gently used, maybe I'll offer up this pair as one of the prizes for the craft along. Tell me if you think that's tacky or not. I don't normally give away used things, but at the same time, they really are gently used. So in case, if there's someone out there who's also interested in trying them. So now I can say I at least tried them. And I didn't really expect to like it, but now I can say for sure I'm just not comfortable with it. Again, maybe if I gave it longer, I could get comfortable, but I don't know. I just don't see that. All right. Oh yes. So, I guess it was late the other day. Maybe it was even when I was lying in bed one night. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, I had this revelation that my new Anna Green Gables mini set that I showed you last week, the Kindred Spirits set from Midnight Cravings, had 12 colors in it. And a while back, I had tried unsuccessfully to find the perfect blend of yarns for my perfect blend shawl by Casapinka. So this is what it looks like. And it takes 12 colors. And I thought, there you go. Maybe since these colors are done, as a set, maybe this will work with those. So then, of course, once I got it in my head, then I wasn't going to wait and cast it on. I needed to find out right then and there. So I did cast it on, and I got all the way from, I fiddled around with the color order quite a bit, finally cast it on, got all the way up to color 12, or actually you start with color 12 and you work down to color 1. I got all that way, and then I had some second thoughts about the order of some of the colors, took it out. I did a little bit of knitting, reknitting, but I've got back to the 12 sections now, and I actually cut the yarns. So this is my order. This is my color order. So here's what I have done so far. As I say, I've got all 12 sections, first 12 sections done. And what I really wanted to do, if you were watching last week, you'll know that they were kind of paired up with the multicolored yarns are representative of certain characters in Anna Green Gables, and then the solids or tonals are references to things involving those characters, so they kind of go together. So for instance, this is Marilla Cuthbert, and this is Amethyst Brooch. This is Diana Berry. This is Raspberry Cordial. This one is Rachel Lind. That's Afternoon Tea. This one is Gilbert Blythe and Broken Slate. This is Matthew Cuthbert and Puffed Sleeves. And then this is Anne with an E. And then, of course, there's Green Gables. And so I really wanted to keep the colors that went together. And what I sort of a happy accident that I found out after I'd looked ahead in the pattern a little bit is right at the beginning here, you can see you alternate between a garter section and a plain section. And then it turned out, because of the way I'd laid them out, that all of the garter sections are the multicolored yarns, and then all the stockinette sections are the tonal ones. And so then as the shawl progresses, every second section is a different pattern divided by garter stitch sections, and these garter stitch sections remain the same throughout. So I was really pleased about that. It wasn't intentional, but I like the idea of the different stitch patterns being on the tonals, because I think they will show, I think the plainer yarn will show off the stitch patterns better. So yeah, happy accident. I like how it's going together. Now that I'm looking at it on screen too, I'm happier with it. I think what happened before is I ended up with too many kind of dark ones all together. And then what happens with this shawl is you, this is, like I say, 12 to 1. And now I'm going to go from 2 to 6. And then you start again with 1 to 6. And then you finish up, actually, I think you actually finish up with, sorry, I think you go, sorry, I think now it goes 2 to 6 and then goes 1 to 12. And so these colors here, these 6 colors from here to here, are kind of all in the middle of the shawl, and then these colors are at the end. So I wanted there to not be too much dark stuff all together. And so I switched it up so that rearranged, like these two were together. And anyway, probably say way more about that than I have to, but yeah, happy with how that's knitting up so far. And I really like these kind of asymmetrical triangular shaped shawls, or boomerang, I think sometimes they're called. I like knitting those. And again, it's you know, it's not difficult, but it's more interesting than just knitting miles and miles of stockinette forever, which is kind of what I'm going to be doing in the next project I show you, now that I mention it. Now you can probably see the light changing because the sun is coming in and out from behind the clouds. So it was peeking out a little earlier, and then it was cloudy again when I started recording. So it's kind of nice to see a little bit more sun poking through before it disappears entirely for the day. Okay, so let me just grab something and then I'll talk about it. Oh, by the way, this is my Walk Along by Anka Strick that I knit out of Madeline Tosh Merino Light. Can't remember exactly, last year sometime. So last week I told you that I was starting to look for dresses to wear to our son's wedding at the end of April. So I went online to a couple different shops and was planning to order several dresses from each shop. And I wasn't really sure exactly what size to order. I kind of went off their sizing guide on the website. Long story short, one of these shops is about an hour's drive towards Vancouver from here. And I had looked on the website and looked at whether the dresses I wanted to order were available in store in my size, and they weren't. But my husband was heading out that way to a golf store that was across the street from where this clothing store is located last Saturday. So I decided to drive in with him, and then I thought, well, I can at least go and try on some of their dresses in the different styles and get a sense of what size to, is going to fit me. And as it turned out, a couple of the dresses that I had sort of marked as possibilities were actually there. And it turned out I took a different size than the website suggested. And long story short, although I didn't really make that long story very short, I found a dress. So I really wanted a floral. Her bridesmaid's going to be wearing burgundy. That's her colors. So I had thought I would like a floral dress. So this is looks like this, and then I'll just lift up the. Oh, I guess I'll fold this back or something. It just has this detail at the hemline. It's like a slit with this kind of a ruched. Has like a casing here that this bow or this string is. I'm sorry, I am just, words, they are escaping me. The dress is kind of ruched up by tightening up these ties. I just left it the way it was when I tried it on. Anyway, this was the one I liked the best, and I was able to actually, try it on in person, find out, yes, I do actually like it. So, did I mention that this wedding's at the end of April? So, here in the sort of lower mainland of British Columbia, your weather is iffy at that time of year. It could either be really nice and everyone can go around in, just without jackets, or it could be wet and rainy or a little bit on the cold side. So I decided I wanted a layer to go over it. So I was looking again online at different shops to see if I could find a jacket or cardigan that would complement this, and I just couldn't find anything. So then, of course, being a knitter, I went looking at my stash, and you might have guessed by now, I found this yarn. This is actually it's the same yarn as this, Madeline Tosh Merino Light. I'm going to turn this around, that might be easier to see. And anyway, it matches very well, as you can see. So I've decided to knit a cardigan out of this. And what I am making is called Love's Promise. How fitting is that for a wedding? It's by Amanita Agata Makowitz. I think it's how you say it. She just has on her pattern, it just says by Amanita. So I'm going to go with that. So it looks like this. Let's see if I can bring it up a bit bigger. Unfortunately, there are not tons of really good pictures of it. It's one thing I discovered looking for just in patterns in general is a lot of designers that, they do beautiful photography, but you can't always see exactly how it looks. This is probably the best one to show you. So it's an open front cardigan, and it just has this little lacy pattern that runs sort of down. Let's see if there's another picture that can show you down the side of each side of the cardigan. So that's a little bit better picture of that. And then, as you can see, it has sort of just past elbow length sleeves. I'm going to lengthen them to full length because this dress has full length sleeves. So yeah, it's a raglan, top down raglan construction. And so it's a lot of stockinette. So I have cast on. There's the pattern picture. Yeah, so I cast on, and I've done this much. Not much at all, unfortunately. Basically just set up all the raglan shaping, got markers, and now it's just doing that you know, till it's time to separate for the armholes. Then you get a little bit more fun when you get to the body part, because you can do that lace that runs along the sides. So yeah, this is going to be my sort of plain knitting, which will in a lot of times take the place of knitting on socks for the next little while. But yeah, I think it'll work just fine. Now I had a little bit of trouble choosing a size for this pattern too, because it doesn't actually give you a measurement of the full circumference. Because it's meant to be open in the front, it doesn't quite meet at the front. And so it did say that the model had on the medium with a 36.5-inch bust, and then it gave you measurements for the sleeves and for, let's see what else, sleeve circumference, the finished waist, so that's not meeting in the front, and then the hips. Again, it doesn't meet in the front, so you've got to do a little math, add on the mount for the bands and such, and then allow for a gap in the middle. So I just took a chance. Actually, I used this sweater in part as a comparison because I wasn't sure about the sleeve circumference. It seemed kind of small, but then when I compared the number of stitches on this sleeve to the number on this one, and I think had the same gauge if I remember correctly. Anyway, I felt like, okay, this is fine, and I tried it on over the dress. Had another pattern that I've knit in a similar yarn, another sweater, and I tried that on over the dress just to get a sense of whether the armholes or whether the sleeves would be too tight over something else, and they were fine. So I've gone with that medium size and hoping for the best. So wish me luck. All right, up and coming is, as I mentioned, the socks, Handmade Sock Society 4 came out this week. So this is the first pattern, the curling, I couldn't read it backwards, curling mist socks. So they are inspired by mist walking as you walk through a eucalyptus forest in Australia, because Helen Stewart's moved back to Australia from the UK. I'm having trouble deciding what yarn to use. I think part of it is that I often try and pick a yarn that complements her theme. So for instance, for vapor socks, I remember telling you that when I was looking out the window one day and I saw a vapor trail being left by a plane through a sky that was like this color, and so that was my inspiration for choosing this yarn for this pattern. I can't quite picture walking through a eucalyptus forest, so I'm trying to sort of think of where other scenarios that I might encounter mist. So I'm thinking sort of mist against the mountains or mist coming up from a lake. So I'm leaning more towards probably blues than this green that it was knit in. But my first sort of look through my stash didn't have any that really stood out. So I have to sort of ponder on that. But I'm hoping by next week I will have cast these on. I struggle always to keep up with the sort of knit along dates for this Sock Society collection, because Helen Stewart does run a knit along in her Ravelry group, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. But I also don't want to be a year later and knitting the last sock like this time. So I'm going to try at least to work on those somewhat. I forgot to bring it in, but I haven't talked about what I'm reading for a very long time, and I'm not going to do a whole catch up, but I have been still reading. And then as I was knitting on this perfect blend shawl last night, and of course it's all Anne of Green Gables inspired colorways, and I thought, you know what, I haven't read that series for a very long time. So I ran downstairs and took the first one, Anne of Green Gables, off the shelf and read the first couple of chapters last night. Um, a while ago, I realized that I am missing book 7 from the series for some reason. I used to have them all. And so going to, I looked a little bit online last night and I couldn't find one that is exactly the same series that I have. Um, at least not available here. And so I'm going to, we've got a couple of used bookstores in town. I'm going to go and check them out and see if they might be able to hook me up with one to match the rest of my set. Other than that, I guess I'm just going to have to settle for something that's close. But yeah, I was enjoying that. I'd forgotten, it's been so long, forgot exactly how it began. And I think because I'm reading it so many years after the last time, just forming new impressions of the characters and the setting. It's just coming at it from, I bet you, these books I have now, it appears this set was put out sort of mid to late 80s. I think it was 85 or 87. So that may even be the last time I read them, which makes it like 30 plus years. I guess that's possible. I didn't think it'd been that long, but anyway, I'm reading them now. Not a whole lot to talk about as far as what's going on this week. Just looking at my notes here. Oh yeah, told you I found a dress for the wedding, so that is like a phew, load off my shoulders. I've been trying to sort of tackle some clutter. I did a pretty good cleanup here in the craft room. Well, I had gotten my loom for Christmas and had all these heddles and things that needed to find a home. And what I ended up doing is cleaning out. I have a hope chest that used to be my husband's grandmother's, and it has quite a shallow drawer on the very bottom front, and that turned out to be the perfect place to put all the heddles and some other weaving supplies, also some cross-stitch things, and not displace the yarn that's in the main chest. So that was good. And then yeah, I've taken some yarn out of my chest recently to work on some of these new sweaters. So that's also, the lid fits much more easily down now because it was pretty packed in there. And I took my old sewing machine. Cameron took it back down to the garage for me because I got my new machine back from being serviced, so I finally got that set back up. And so yeah, it's just looking much tidier in here. I mean, you see this every week and it looks pretty clean, and actually this part does stay really clean. I'm good about putting things back in their cubbies and things, but I tend to stack things on top of the chest and on top of the sewing desk over here, and so it's nice to look around and see it. Not everything in its place, but most things have a place and most of them are in it. Let's see, what else? I guess that's it. My something good for the week, I went for a walk this morning, and I went past this one house, and there were quite a few of these birds, and then I realized they were robins. They must have been 6 or 7 of them, all together. And usually we see robins maybe ones and twos. And so it got me wondering what a group of robins is called. Was it a flock or was it something else? So, of course, Google is our friend, and I found out, at least for British robins, it's called a round of robins, which just, I love the sound of that. And then I wondered if that had anything to do with, like in a tournament, you have a round robin tournament. But then what I was reading is that this was some kind of, I don't know exactly a contest, but a poll in the UK, I think 2011, that was looking for a name of what you would call a group of robins. And that's sort of what became, was sort of the winner. So I don't know if it's the same for our American robins, which is what we have here in North America. I think they're actually a type of thrush. Apparently a British robin is a type of flycatcher. So they are not the same, but our American robins have similar coloring to the robins in the UK. I don't know if they're in Asia also, but in Europe generally, I don't know. I just know that we have one kind of robin on this side of the pond and you guys have a different one over there. So a round of robins. I thought that was just such a lovely sounding word. It's kind of like I discovered a few years ago that a whole flock of starlings, which I detest, is called a murmuration of starlings, and somehow that just makes them seem more beautiful. And actually when you do see them in their big flocks or their big murmurations, doing their little dance in the sky, they are gorgeous to watch. I love it in the summertime. We will sit on the deck, and in the evening we often see these murmurations of starlings, and they are beautiful then. They are not so beautiful when they land on your feeders en masse and clean you out of house and home. So starlings are not my favorite bird, but they do have a lovely sounding name for a group of starlings. Okay, I think I've babbled on long enough. Let's see. It is just before 4 o'clock, so I got this done in under an hour. Yay me. I'll see if I can get it up by early evening. So thank you as always for watching, for joining me this week. My plan is to record late next week as usual, and I keep thinking I should record on Thursdays, and then somehow Thursdays arrive and I'm not quite ready to sit down and record because I want to work on something a little more, or for whatever reason it doesn't work out. But it's a better day than Friday, really, so I might play with that. So you may see me a day earlier next week. We'll see. Anyway, regardless, take care until then. I hope you are all healthy, safe, well. It's encouraging to see more vaccinations rolling out. My mom mentioned in a message to all of us, my sisters and I, that they are expecting fairly soon to get them set up for the seniors in her community. So cross fingers that that's comes soon. I'll feel much better when I know that both my mom and my mother-in-law have had their 2 shots and are much safer after that. Anyway, here I go babbling some more. So I'm going to stop now and say goodbye. So have a great weekend. Bye for now.